Star Wars Celebration was this past weekend, and we have a new title and trailer for Episode 9. All that and more. Blockbuster Breakdown starts right now. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Blockbuster Breakdown. I am your host, Liam Crowley, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Mike Gillis. Mike, a pretty busy weekend for you. How you doing?
It has been a busy weekend. I'm doing good. You know, I just got off our weekend of doing Gypsy here at South Virginia University, which it was a great show. I'm very tired still, but I go on break later this week, so it's going to be some most needed rest.
Absolutely. This news episode coming ahead of Easter weekend, and yeah, it's going to be a good one as it's our last weekend until the cinematic event of the century with Avengers Endgame. But we're going to focus a little more on some different news on today's show. We do have a bit of Marvel news. We'll get to that later, but we're going to start with our box office report. But before we get into that, we like to remind you that on this show, we talk blockbuster movies, and we define blockbuster a little different than the normal definition. While the normal definition says the movies that are these big, grand action set pieces, we talk about those, but we also talk about any movie that has that mainstream appeal and is typically based on extensive source material. A movie that when you see the trailers, when you see the teaser for the trailer on an Instagram ad, it makes you go, I need to see that right now. A movie that you book your tickets in advance, around 2 months in advance before even seeing this movie. All right, with that being said, we're going to get right into the box office recap from this past weekend, and we're going to have a lot to talk about, Mike, as 2 movies debuted, and 1 movie was in its second weekend. Coming in at number 1, to little surprise, I guess, is Shazam, making $24.4 million, dropping 54% in its second weekend. Coming in at number 2 is Little in its debut weekend, making $15.4 million. Coming in at number 3 is the reboot of Hellboy, making $12 million in its opening weekend. Coming in at number 4 is Pet Sematary, another reboot, making $9.7 million, dropping 60%, I believe, in its second weekend. And rounding out the top 5 is Dumbo, another remake, coming in with $9.4 million, dropping 48%. So, Mike, the weekend, it seems, of remakes as 3 of the top 5 are remakes, but what is the one that stands out to you the most out of the top 5?
I like seeing Pet Sematary still in that top 5 position. I like how it's above Dumbo even, because I'm sure Pet Sematary was way cheaper to make than Dumbo, and I heard some mixed things about it, Dumbo that is, and I still want to see Pet Sematary, but being here, it's just difficult to get to the movie theaters, but I will be seeing Shazam next week, hopefully, or this week rather, so hopefully I'll have some stuff to say about that next time we have an episode on news and stuff, but yeah, I mean, it seems to, make sense. A lot of openings. It's interesting. I mean, not interesting because I think the reviews killed Hellboy because I think if the reviews were good enough, it could have knocked Shazam down a spot. Especially what's Little? It looks like it looks like a comedy. Hellboy should have been able to knock that out of the ground, but I think its abysmal reviews are why it's only at number 3.
Yeah, it's interesting, as you said, Little seems like the spiritual successor to Big, which is the Tom Hanks movie where the kid turns into adult Tom Hanks, which seemed to be the inspiration for Shazam, at least one of the movies that Shazam took inspiration from. So interesting to see a movie like Little coming out so close to Shazam. Yeah, Shazam, not too impressive, dropping that much in its second weekend, as these superhero movies typically make in the high 50s in its second weekend. But something we should all keep in mind is Shazam and Aquaman, the latest 2 DC movies, are very different in terms of their budget. Aquaman definitely pushed closer to $200 million, while Shazam is around $100 million for their production budget. It's getting close to $300 million worldwide. And this movie, when you think of the CGI in this movie, you don't have to create a whole underwater kingdom. You're just creating some elaborate flight sequences, and Dr. Savannah has the lightning powers, so you don't have to do too much with the CGI. But the one I want to talk about, Mike, as you alluded to, is Hellboy. what a colossal failure. 12 million in its opening weekend, not even coming in at number one. Production budget of around 50 million. You kind of come to realize this is why Guillermo del Toro did not want to return and conclude his trilogy, and why they ended up rebooting it. I do not think this was a good idea to reboot this movie. I do agree that the reviews are not helping the movie's case, but I think that there is just a lack of interest for Hellboy. And coming out in the first half of 2019, when we're already being swarmed by all these huge comic book properties, Captain Marvel, Shazam, Avengers Endgame comes out next weekend, people, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. And I really don't think people care as much about Hellboy as the original did. And the original, it didn't even crush at the box office. It did warrant a sequel, but I feel like Hellboy's more of a cult-like film, and rebooting it I do not think was a great idea.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely think it's more of a cult film, and if they ever did want to make another Hellboy film, they should have just given Del Toro the budget he wanted to make the third film. So hopefully Lionsgate kind of takes this as like, maybe we shouldn't kind of just throw money at a property that people like, and hopefully it sticks, because it seems like it was kind of a rushed attempt to fight against Endgame. It's coming out a week before to make a little bit more money, so they're not that stupid. If they were very stupid, they would have put it against Endgame, and it would have been crushed even more.
Yeah, I do not actually expect to see Hellboy even in the top 5. I think it'll stay in the top 5 this upcoming weekend, but as soon as Endgame comes out, Hellboy is done. I think Hellboy is going to drop maybe even out of the top 10 very fast, and I don't think this is a movie that's going to be in theaters very long. As we know, Endgame is looking to break that opening weekend box office record, and because of its runtime, it's forcing a lot of movies to not be shown, and in favor of showing Endgame multiple times. So I don't think Hellboy is going to be on that many screens come 2 weeks. And yeah, a big flop for Hellboy, a critical disaster, a financial failure, not what you want to see for a blockbuster type movie. It fits all of our.
It's too bad. And I would even say Dumbo is kind of hanging in there on the thread. I don't think Dumbo ever did that well.
Yeah, Dumbo never crushed. I did like the idea, and I liked the cast. I liked the reunion of Danny DeVito,
yes,
and Michael Keaton, and why is his
Tim
name
Burton.
escaping? Tim Burton, yeah. I like that idea, but I feel like Dumbo is just yet another Disney property that they were just obsessed with. We have to reboot everything in live action, and I don't think it was as necessary to be brought to the big screen. But I did hear it was critically reviewed well. It's just one of those movies that never really caught my interest.
Yeah, true.
All right, with that being said, we're going to move on to our first official news topic, and it was a big weekend for fans of the Star Wars franchise, as the annual Star Wars celebration took place this weekend in Chicago, Illinois. And yeah, we got a lot of content for upcoming Star Wars projects. The Mandalorian, which is going to be a TV series, a limited series on Disney Plus, the exclusive streaming service. You can check out our full breakdown of that on another episode here on our podcast feed. But the topic we're going to talk about today is how the weekend affected Star Wars cinema, and it was a big one. This comes from Forbes. And it goes, this past weekend, we got our first look at the last Star Wars movie for a good long while, the end of the Skywalker saga, but not before putting the name in an actual title of the movie for once. The next movie, Episode 9, is called Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which has led to a flurry of speculation about what that exactly means. The immediate theories that first leap to everyone's mind are all, no doubt, wrong. They include to Skywalker referring to Rey's true parentage, Skywalker referring to Ben Solo, Skywalker referring to Leia, and Skywalker referring to Luke. Accompanied by the addition of the title is a first look teaser trailer, which doesn't reveal too much, but gets fans excited for the conclusion of the latest trilogy in the Star Wars saga. Mike, Star Wars was not in a great place after The Last Jedi. Whether you loved it or hated it, it divided Star Wars fans. Did this teaser trailer get you back on the Star Wars hype train?
I think just the ending of that teaser trailer alone got a lot of people to be more hyped than they were for Last Jedi. But I do think Star Wars is in kind of a tricky situation right now. They're either too far away from the original trilogy and where the story should be going according to fans, or they're like just repeating themselves over and over again with the same plot threads. I mean, I'll reveal it now because it's in the trailer, but like we hear Palpatine's laugh, so we see the Death Star, the second Death Star, destroyed on I believe they're on Endor, right?
I would imagine that they are on Endor, but we have yet to revisit a planet from the original trilogy, so it might be a new planet.
But I don't know how I feel completely yet, because like I think it should be somewhere in the middle. I think Force Awakens did an okay job, kind of in the middle. I think they were a little bit too close to rehashing, but I'm excited for it because I love Star Wars, but I just don't want to see a repeat story. I think Last Jedi, I personally liked Last Jedi. I didn't like what they did with some of the characters, but I thought it was still a very, very good movie. It was a fun movie, good time in the theater. But it's going to be interesting to see what J.J. Abrams is going to do with kind of like the mess that I think fans kind of left. I don't think the director, Rian Johnson, I don't think he left a mess. I think the fans left a mess with Star Wars, and he's going to have to mop it up.
Yeah, I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I think Rian Johnson did leave a bit of a mess, and I think this trailer, especially how excited it got me for Episode 9, kind of reaffirms that this is JJ's trilogy, and it should never have been split with different directors. Their original plan was JJ Episode 7, Rian Johnson Episode 8, Colin Trevorrow from Jurassic World fame Episode 9, and for whatever reason, I believe one of his movies just got critically panned and it was a box office failure. They removed Trevorrow and rehired JJ to come back and finish the trilogy. So fans who see JJ directing Episode 9 and think, oh, why did they fire him for Episode 8? He was never attached to Episode 8, so don't get that confused. This is not a James Gunn situation where he was fired and brought back for whatever reason. They just never planned on bringing him back and then decided to go with him to do Episode 9 before Last Jedi even came out. So before that got bad reviews from fans and good reviews from critics. This trailer kind of reaffirms that The Last Jedi is going to kind of just be that ugly duckling of a Star Wars movie that's not going to really affect anything, because a lot of what is set up seems to be like they're just going to retcon a lot of stuff. Luke says, we have a new monologue from Luke as he goes over the trailer, no one's ever truly gone. So I think we're going to see Force Ghosts from Luke, and he's going to be back. And then, as you said, Palpatine's laugh at the end. It got me so excited in the moment, and then it kind of made me realize, I want to give a shout out to Screen Junkie's Dan Merle, who said on Twitter, Rian Johnson in Episode 8, a big quote was, the Jedi, the Sith, kill it all, let the past die. Episode 9, first trailer. Who remembers Palpatine? It's like, it's a lot of fan service, and I love Episode 7. So personally, I'm okay with a fan service movie that's going to wrap up the trilogy and wrap up the Skywalker saga. So eventually, when we do see Episode 10, 11, 12, we can focus on a new story. But I think JJ is going to wrap up the trilogy nicely. I just kind of wish Episode 8 was also JJ's movie, because rather than continuing his story from Episode 7, it seems like he's going to have to pull double duty, in the sense that he's going to have to mop up a lot of what Rian Johnson retconned from his movie so he can retcon his retcons and fix that. Rian Johnson also had a funny tweet. I remember he said, like, what a perfect trailer that had no flaws. I'm so excited to see this movie. He's clearly a little still upset with how much people disliked Episode 8. And yeah, like I said, I was not a fan of Episode 8, and I really just was kind of off the Star Wars train for a bit, and this trailer got me excited again, but I'm not like fully on board. I'm not dying for December to be here just yet, because we are in full Marvel territory right now, and that's all I can really focus on. It's already hard enough to balance Game of Thrones going on while Endgame hype and Endgame is going to come out. Star Wars, it was good to drop the trailer during Celebration. It's an appropriate time for a teaser. Did not reveal too much. A good 7 months until we'll see this movie. 7 or 8 months, excuse me. So my essential review is that it was a good time to drop the trailer. Good content in it. And Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, it kind of just is fine with me. The title I'm not crazy about, but I think it is due justice to put the Skywalker name in the title if this is indeed going to be the last of the Skywalker saga, even though the title seems